The next question is for general seats A and B. You'll all be asked it. Curtis was going to go first. Craig, you are next. Here's the question. Environmental issues seem to run the gamut from narrow single issues to broad philosophies. So what environmental issues do you see as priorities that you think City Council could take up and actually do something about during your term if elected?
Well, I think there are a number of issues. Is the microphone on?
Yeah, but do move it a little closer to your mouth. Yeah.
I think there are a number of issues. One is our wastewater and stormwater treatment facilities. We have a lot of stormwater that gets into our sewer system, and I think the Public Works Department is doing a good job of trying to stem that infiltration into the sewer system, which I think is a good program. We're also renewing sewer lines. The other problem we've got in the city, I think we've gotten to the point where 99% of the tracts of property in the city of Springfield are now sewered. And I know that sounds like that's not a big deal, but when tracts are not sewered, that means they have septic systems, and that's a real danger with Southwest Missouri's. I forget what that means. Is that
15 seconds?
15. The other thing is Coulter. Is another thing that we're looking at. Is we're applying Coulter, which is a carcinogen, to our parking lots all over the city of Springfield. It leaches off into the drainage retention.
All right,
Time's
up. Thank you, Jesse. Same question.
I'm not on the council, so I don't know all the environmental issues that are arising over the entire city, but I guess one thing that I would think of is probably an environmental issue that is caused by the influx of panhandlers that have come due to the ordinance being scrapped. That environmental issue of just the homeless population increasing. I know there's a lot of private property with that they've had to expel those individuals, and there's a lot of trash and that kind of thing that needs to be picked up, and those are things that I think that need to be addressed just so that we can ensure that that our communities stay safe and ensure that those areas stay clean as well.
All right, thank you. And Jan Fisk.
Well, I don't want to reiterate what Craig said, but we've worked together on this now for several years. This is something we could have ignored, the federal mandates coming down, and it would have cost us probably $1.6 billion to deal with all the mandates coming through. But we've gone ahead and tried to do so many things to the sewer lines and taking care of these issues, that the program that our staff has done has been to make sure that we're progressive with handling these issues, and this is something that has been a model program with the EPA in the nation. So some of our staff will be going to different conferences telling them how we're handling environmental issues here. So we will be a role model for the rest of the nation.
All right, thank you, Jan. And Alan Kemper.
I'm really not that knowledgeable to know about the problems that we face as a city, but I will apply everything I can, and I will have all my advisors to share their input, and I am a good listener. And know this, I will do everything I can to keep Springfield a clean city. I will do everything I can to inject my voice to say that if we truly look at these issues and we treat them as such one by one, we can accomplish them. But if we address them all at one time, we won't be able to really go anywhere. So I hope that as time progresses, that it will be a matter of going in the pace of the flow of where we can apply everything we can to solve the problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
All right, this next question is also for the general seat candidates. What health issues do you see as priorities that you think City Council could take up and do something about during your term if elected? And Mr. Kemper, we'll start with you this time.
Again, I would say as for health, I don't have really the knowledge to know exactly what are critical things that we're looking at. Just simply have to say, do everything we can to encourage those medical professions and those that are studying to be doctors. Do what we can to tell people to research and find ways. There are alternative ways as well, and to look and see that our own body is an environment that must be well taken care of. I'm a firm believer in strong immunity, and I hope that will allow a lot of feedback because, thank you, there's a lot of breakthrough discoveries that we're not hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coulter. Mr. Coulter.
I would definitely say that we need to, as a city, we need to focus on those basic needs that are for our community. But that being the case, I think we need the health issues. We need to ensure that we can get our citizens the information that they need, and reaching out to those organizations within our city, those non-profit that are all over the city, and linking them up with those individuals that are in need of any type of health issues that they may have concerning, whether it be that they don't have the money for the health issues or if they just have a health problem. So getting those people linked up to those organizations is a priority, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fisk, you're next.
So many mental health issues we see every day in Springfield, and it's related with so many issues, the panhandling. A lot of those individuals have health issues. So many of our crime is based on domestic abuse, mental illness, and so trying to treat it instead of just sending them off to jail, which, you know, that's then it becomes overcrowded, that really dealing with that as much as we can with different programs. And I think there's a program in Kansas City that we're studying now that will help kind of catch it early. So instead of just ignoring it, but taking these individuals and really trying to get the best care we can for them.
Thank you. And Mr. Hosmer.
I'd say probably two issues. One is the prescription drug monitoring program that I think the City Council voted 8-1 to go ahead and recommend or encourage to have a municipal prescription drug monitoring program, because the state legislature is not doing it. Missouri is the only state in the nation that doesn't have a prescription drug monitoring program, which means people that are abusing opioids are going to one doctor, going to another doctor's, and doctors have no idea when they're prescribing multiple opioids to these people. They're becoming addicted. They're also selling these drugs to other people. So that is something that it's ridiculous if that we don't do as a state, but if we don't do it as a state, we should be able to prepare to do it as a city, and that's what we voted for 8-1. I agree with Jan, the mental health issue. If you ride along with any Springfield police officer in the city of Springfield, you recognize that they're law enforcement officers first, but they're counselors and social workers second. A lot of people they deal with on a daily basis have mental health issues, and we have to do a better job of that.
Okay. Thank you, candidates.
Thank you. This question is for everybody. Poverty leads in many cases to family stress. This stress can lead to domestic violence and many other forms of crime. Children raised in such environments tend to fall short in academic performance. Poor academic performance can lead to a next generation of poverty. How do we change that cycle? Kristi Fulnecky, we start with you.
Thank you. Hopefully I'm not repeating from the forum from the other night, but I feel strongly that sometimes government's not the answer to everything, but we have a lot of great nonprofits in the area, and I used the example the other night of Isabella's House, how much great work they're doing in crisis situations, and sometimes that's how it starts for the working poor. They get into a crisis with paying utility bills, trying to put food on the table, and so you have to get to those people when they're having a crisis. And so how do you do that as a city council? Well, you try to get business people here in the city, and maybe as a mayor I could highlight these nonprofits, because there was another nonprofit that provides shoes in the elementary schools. And so they're different programs, but I think as a leader that you could highlight those and not reinvent the wheel, and then by highlighting bring money. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken McClure?
The Impacting Poverty Commission gave us a very good blueprint of what the issue was. That in turn translated into the Zone 1 Blitz in May of 2015. We learned so much there. So what are we going to do about that information? I think we got clear priorities established. We need to address poverty, but the way we're going to have to do that is to get jobs that have good paying wages. What we're finding is that people, when they go to work, are not really trained for what they do. It's going to be a focus on workforce development and training, in my opinion. As we go forward, we're going to have to make sure that people have the appropriate training as they come in. What I've been told by employers is that people coming to work do not have basic life skills. And if you're able to deal with those and address that, then you can hopefully start addressing some of the the poverty issues and the low wages that go with that.
Thank you. Jan Fisk.
I've heard that it takes 3 generations to break the poverty cycle. And I know that it works, and I've seen it happen. And I think so much teaching children in the lower grades, they come from homes where we probably just unimaginable what's going on. But working with children, teaching them these life soft skills, that what's right and what's wrong, and hopefully then that will be something that they can in turn kind of help the families too when they know of certain circumstances that are not good for these children. But starting there, I think, is another way that we can deal with those issues, and hopefully they will learn and grow up and change and break that cycle.
Thank you. Alan Kemper.
Yes. As I was sharing at the News and Leader Candidate Forum, domestic violence is a sad indication of society breakdown. When it breaks down in the home, which is the core element that holds all of society together, we have a real problem. And as I said in my opening remarks, we must agree upon a standard. I know there are many people that would be in agreement with me when I say this, so I will say this anyway. I believe the Bible is the standard that we all must realize has worked for every culture, every society, to where there was absolutely no violence in the home, but there was perfect love, peace, order. And I would like to say training and not suppressing the Bible teaching, because it works every time. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse Coulter.
I'm going to say education early on is the best for the children. We need to do that as soon as possible. In the school district, that kind of thing needs to be taught to them, so that they can, if they can identify it and get it reported, then we can go that route. But again, I also don't think that it's the government's position to. We don't use taxpayers' money good. We're very wasteful, and I think that if we can reach in and to these non-government organizations and partner with them, get those individuals in touch with those organizations, I think that's the way we can really work in our neighborhoods to reduce domestic violence, child abuse, and that sort of thing.
Thank you. Craig Hosmer.
First of all, I think the Wills to Work program that Ken McClure and Phyllis put together, that we're working on at council, I think is a great start. I think there's a lot of things that we need to do better. But I believe that education is a great equalizer. I grew up in a relatively low-income, poor family. My mother was divorced when we were very young. But education is the one thing that gives you the opportunity to do anything you want. And so I think one of the things that we have to do as a community is support our public schools better, and that's why I think that we need to support the bond issue that's before voters in April. I think one of the things that we look at, we keep putting more and more burden on teachers. They're doing everything for a lot of these kids, and your first few formative years are where you're really going to make a big difference. We can say it's not a government's function, but it's government's function to spend $30,000 a year warehousing a prisoner. But we don't spend $4,000 or $5,000 taking care of kids, and that to me is a mixed up priority.
That's really good stuff.
Yes. Good job cutting off there. Thank you.
I'm used to teachers.
This next question is also for all of you, and Jesse, we'll start with you. Here's the question. What do you see as the relationship between neighborhoods and economic development?
Well, I mean, economic development has to happen so that we have continued growth in our neighborhoods, and that growth needs to be healthy growth. If we have the economic development that we want to bring jobs, better paying jobs to our communities, I think that just adds into a community growing in a way that's safe and what word am I looking for? In a way that brings advances to the city. A neighborhood is part of the city, and I believe that if we can harness that power of the neighborhood, then it's going to continue throughout the city. So the the way we need to do that is just to reach out to those companies, bring them in, talk to them, see where we can help them, where we can deregulate things, where we can review those regulations, get rid of those old ones. So,
All right, thank you. Alan Kemper, you're next.
Without a neighborhood, we don't have a city. And I'm so thankful that we have many neighborhood associations. As I've been out door knocking and meeting people, I'm realizing Springfield is house after house after house, street after street of where people are living, raising families, and enjoying life, or facing struggles and problems. And one man said, I talked to today, he said, man, I work 3 jobs, and all I can think about is work, just to be able to survive. So I believe it's very important for neighbors to get to know each other, and here let the principle of looking and seeing the other better than yourselves instead of yourself and your own interests, that we as neighbors and in neighborhoods can truly grow the economy of Springfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Jan Fisk?
Could you repeat the question again? I'm
Sure,
sorry.
yes. What do you see as the relationship between neighborhoods and economic development?
Well, there's a fine line, and this is something that we deal with a lot on council, encroaching business into the neighborhoods. And this is something that I'm very, very conscious of. We really take it by case, but I really feel that we are, first and foremost, we really need to preserve our neighborhoods as much as we can, but then again, allowing our city to grow by letting new businesses come in. So it's just something that we do, and we take it very seriously, because the decisions that we make on council, it's going to affect a lot of people, and we want to make sure it's the best that we can do.
All right, thank you, Jan. Craig, Hosmer?
Well, I think there is always going to be a little bit of friction. Sometimes I get criticized on council for not being favorable to developers, and I'm in favor of developers. I think developers are great, but I think the problem is sometimes as we, as a council, we allow our planning and zoning to change on a piece-by-piece basis. If a developer tells us they want to change their plan, we sometimes allow them to change that plan even though it's got a negative impact on the neighborhood. And if you don't have strong neighborhoods, you're going to have problems with crime, you're going to have problems with public works, you're going to have problems with all kinds of things. Strong neighborhoods make a strong community, and I think sometimes we do things on council that are destructive to neighborhoods rather than constructive with neighborhoods. So I think it's important that we protect neighborhoods and make sure that we don't do development when development maybe shouldn't be done.
All right, thank you. Next up, Ken McClure.
Neighborhoods are really the key to economic development, and as has been mentioned, there is sometimes a tension between what's best for a neighborhood, what does a developer want to do, and those are not easy answers. You do have to look at them on a case-by-case basis. But what finally sells me on the emphasis on economic development is the fact that when businesses, new employers, workforce members are looking to come into our community, they look at the neighborhoods. They look around, they want to see a strong neighborhood, a place where they would want to raise their family, a place where they would want to send their children to a school. And so that makes it so key as we do that. And that's where the neighborhood associations, I think, play such a key role, because it identifies a community within a community. And that's so important to me as we go forward. There is a strong relationship between economic development and the neighborhoods. We have to work through some of the tensions that are always there to make sure we make the best decision.
All right, thank you, Ken. And Kristi Fulnecky?
Yeah, thank you. I come at this from a little, not so much from a zoning perspective, but I think that business has a direct effect on people in the neighborhoods. And really, you need to, especially in the areas where we have businesses, I'm not talking about into neighborhoods, but where we have established corridors for business, that to attract business, you really have to reduce regulations on those small businesses. And that's important. I mean, we have one company downtown, it took them 9 months to get a sign for a sign permit. And so 9 months to put a sign up is way too long. And so we spend all this money advertising that we're business friendly, but then when you move here, you have to deal with building permit process that takes too long, sign permit. And so how does that relate to the neighborhood? Well, if you have these companies come, then you have employees that make good wages. That means that people in your neighborhood are making more money. That means that they can maintain their house, they can cut their yard, they're happier. And so it definitely does have a direct effect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. This next question is again for everyone. and Mr. Hosmer, you'll go first. It is, what kind of jobs do we need to attract or encourage formation of in order to reduce poverty? And if elected, what would you do personally to grow jobs?
Well, I think some of the things that we're doing with the economic incentives, I've also been criticized sometimes with my arguments about abatement, and I'm not a big fan of abatement, but I think we can use our tax incentives to bring jobs. Abatement sometimes just allows somebody not to pay their property tax, and then they build an apartment complex and don't really create any long-term jobs. I'm in favor of doing economic incentives for the craft that we did, which I think is going to bring more jobs, 3M, those type of things. And I think we could do other incentives to go ahead and bring manufacturing type jobs back to Springfield. But I think that sometimes we do small scale abatements, and I think the community loses the perspective for the abatement. I think sometimes what we need to do is look at trying to attract new business to Springfield or retain current businesses in Springfield rather than just having a free-for-all as far as abatement on property taxes. Because also property taxes go to our schools, which we've got to support.
Thank you. Ms. Fulnecky, you're next on this one.
Oh, thank you. And I touched on this a minute ago, but I'll try to talk fast. I really feel that we place way too many burdens on business. And so, I mean, having talked to the people that are in business and developers and people in different industries, that sometimes the government just needs to get out of the way. Manufacturing, those are obviously great paying jobs. That's a national, international issue that, it's hard to compete with someone moving their factory to Mexico. But I think as that gets better on a national level, that will help Springfield. We have to make sure that our healthcare companies, that they're able, the hospitals, those are our largest employers. And so we have to make sure that we're able to recruit people here. And frankly, what I'm hearing, my husband is at Mercy, is that the crime is really an impediment right now, recruiting people to come to Springfield. So I have multiple ways that I look at this. Reducing regulations and reducing crime are very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McClure, you're next.
An area that we really need to ramp up our focus is on young professionals and entrepreneurs. We have such a wealth of talent, people coming out of our educational institutions. We need to encourage them to stay here or encourage them to come back home. With the young entrepreneurs really goes technology. If there's an area I think where we are probably lax in our emphasis, it's in that focus. We have a great set of facilities in the Idea Commons area, Brick City, the Plaster Center. Those are areas that are really hidden jewels for us in our economy in terms of the jobs. We've identified down there a pharmacy program that we have with UMKC. We've identified mechanical engineering as employment needs that we have in the community. And in working with the University of Missouri, those hopefully will come to fruition.
Thank you. Ms. Fisk, you're next.
And talking about the thousands that graduate each year from all of our colleges here, we do want them to stay here, but we want to be attractive. We want them to want to stay here because we offer them first of all a job, and then also we want to be an attractive place to live. Downtown, remember what it was 5 years ago. It's amazing what has happened even in that short time. Last council meeting, I think it was the Bailey School building over here. That could sit for years and deteriorate and it'd just be an eyesore. But the fact that we had this economic tool chest of things that we can offer to a developer to make it attractive to them and affordable for them to go in there and take that old building, which is just rotting away, and going to beautify it and make it a fun place for young professionals to live.
Thank you. Mr. Coulter?
Like I said a little earlier about reviewing old regulations, we need to go over those and get in depth on those and then reduce those regulations on those, on our businesses. But on top of that, we focus a lot on the individuals that are graduating from higher education, and that's only about 20 to 30% of people go to those higher education. So we need to focus in our schools, in our local schools, and focus on trade craft. I know that once I used to work for an SRC company. They worked with individuals during the summer, kids that were in high school and had things like that for manufacturing. Those are things that we need to teach in our local schools because a lot of kids are not going to go to college, and we need to focus on those individuals just as much as we focus on the individuals that are in school. So We need to get them on board and get them focused on a craft that they can be well paid at and build up in these neighborhoods.
Thank you. And Mr. Kemper.
All right, what kind of jobs? Well, I think it'd be great if we can attract more family-friendly businesses, and I'm also for industry so that it's not going to be conflicting with the neighborhoods and the desires of the neighbors. So at this point, all I can say is just simply, let's just see who is attracted here because of our wonderful cost of living being lower than so many places in the nation. That's one thing we can be proud of as being Springfieldians. We do have a low cost of living, and with these good manufacturing companies wanting to settle here, we will have higher paying jobs. And it will also keep everything family friendly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. The next question for everybody also. Ken McClure, you'll go first. If you are elected at the end of your term, what would you want people to say you accomplished?
If I'm elected at the end of 2 years, or however long I would be fortunate to serve, I want us to address the goals that we've talked about, that we have a safer community, well, police, fire, our emergency management that goes with that we have made steps on addressing poverty, that we have done that in the right way through working with Prosper Springfield and the other not-for-profit groups that are out there, that we have addressed workforce training and development, and that we are open to new business models. Uber is a great example. We were able to get rid of a lot of old regulations that maybe had a place at some point in our history as it dealt with traditional taxi cab companies. But as we go forward, we are going to have to be open to brand new business models, such as Uber and Lyft, and that would be a hallmark that I would like to see at the end of my term.
Thank you. Kristi Fulnecky.
Yeah, thank you. What I would like to say is at the end of my term, I'm very results driven, so that we would have a jail, that our crime, that we could somehow measure it, that it would go down, that we would have a panhandling ordinance to protect our citizens and stop aggressive panhandling in our city. And probably most importantly, that our constituents would feel like that they have their day at City Hall. We have a large group of constituents that have been coming to our council meetings for 2 years that had these orange shirts. And so they finally got their issues heard. So I would like them to say that I was a citizen mayor and I really cared about whatever issue, whatever ideology it was, and that they had their voice heard at City Hall.
Next up, Alan Kemper.
I would like for people to say that one thing Alan Kemper accomplished, that the standards of righteousness which have built Springfield, Missouri, are now again talked about, accepted more than before, and that people will realize I did my best to try to point people in the right direction, and I will continue to do that, God willing.
Jesse Coulter.
I'd hope not to be tarred and feathered on social media. Joking. My big thing would be the crime rate being reduced to ensure that every single citizen in every neighborhood could walk the streets and not have to worry about somebody coming to try to get money from them, try to rob them, or anything of that sort, or their vehicle being gone when they leave it running in the morning. I think that having businesses here that are well-paying businesses that can ensure that our communities, our citizens are making a good amount of money for their families would definitely be on that top of that list.
Great, thank you. Jan Fisk.
Well, all these issues that have been mentioned, I think, are very doable. I think they're on the horizon even closer than we think they are. But I think we just need to continue issues that in the past 5 years, I've seen such a tremendous change. I've seen us grow. I've seen us get better and better and better. And I just hope that trend continues, and that I hope that people think that I'm approachable. I've had several calls today asking about certain issues, and so I really hope that people can think that really City Council can make a really big difference in their lives.
Thank you. Craig Hosmer.
I hope that people would think that I'd listen to both sides, because I think that's important on City Council. Nobody on council has all the the right ideas all the time. We need to listen to both sides of an issue. We need to listen to debate on council and make informed decisions. I'd hope that we also have a safer city, a fairer city, a more tolerant city, a more progressive city. And I think that all of those things that we're doing, I think we're making strides to do that right now, but I think it could be better.
All right, candidates, now we have an opportunity for closing remarks. You'll each have 2 minutes, and Mr. Hosmer, we'll start with you.
Well, I would like to have the opportunity to serve one more term on city council. In the last 4 years that I've been on council, one of the issues that I think has been very important is the crime issue. And again, I've had ride-alongs with Springfield police officers, and I have a great deal of respect for the job that they do. They do their job under pretty trying circumstances. But if you look at where we are as a city, on the cities that we compare ourselves to, we've got a higher crime rate and fewer officers. And our officers handle about twice as many crimes as officers in the other 14 cities that we compare ourselves to. And so there's little wonder that we have a lot of crime that's not solved in the city of Springfield. They're going from crime scene to crime scene rather than trying to investigate and solve some of these crimes. So I think it's important that we not just get more police officers, but get more effective police enforcement. And I'm not critical of the Springfield Police Department. They do a great job. The Springfield Fire Department does a great job, but they are under-resourced right now. And I think you have to get certain things right to be a good community. I think one of those things you have to get right is you have to have a right system for criminal justice. And we've got, if you look in the city of Springfield right now, there's about 15,000 warrants that are outstanding, which means people have chosen not to come into court because, for whatever reason, they choose not to show up. That sends the wrong message. There's a story I like to tell. Judge Thornhill, our municipal judge, tells us that there's people that commit crime, they rob or steal from stores in Springfield, and he asks people from some of these other communities, why are you coming into Springfield? And they say, the answer they give us is because you guys don't do anything. So we've got people from Bolivar, Marshfield, my hometown, other people coming into Springfield, and they commit crime here because we don't do anything. We don't have a jail. We don't have effective enforcement. So I think it's something that we have to do, and everybody on council, every person on council wants to do a better job with criminal justice. The goal is trying to make the right way to get there. And so I want to try to continue that work and to try to make Springfield again a safer city for us to live in.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's right. Mr. Kemper.
I also want to see Springfield become the safe community that I grew up in. I was raised in this city. I was born in Burge Hospital. Many of you don't know what that is. That's Cox North. So friends, I go back that far, and my father and my brother and I, we had wonderful relations just in our sign business, meeting many, many customers and getting to just be friendly like it should be. And now, as I walk the streets and I see people not taking care of their properties, not seeming to care, I would like to see there to be a greater excitement about making Springfield to be clean, safe, friendly, family-friendly especially. I'm also the candidate that suggested that we adopt a sister city program, a third sister city, and this one would be in Israel, one that has been hard hit by missiles that we can show a lot of compassion to. I would love to see our city embracing and doing the best we can to encourage all nationalities as they are coming to our city, and let them know that the reason why we are Springfield is because we have a heritage that put God first, the Bible, and we walked in His steps. I will tell you, an evangelist who passed on, he said after World War II, in every street corner, you could hear people shouting praises unto the living God. I'd like to see that return to our cities, or where we can be free, not to be ashamed of His name, and to be able to go forth from victory unto victory. Thank you.
Mr. Coulter.
I would just like to ask that you elect me and let me serve the city. My main focus is crime initially. I agree with Mr. Hosmer. We need more police officers. We need to pay our police officers better so that they're not recruited to go to places like Tulsa or Kansas City. We've had an increase just over the last 2 years of 12.8% of violent crimes in our city, which is phenomenal. Property crime is up 11.3%. These are issues that every single neighborhood, not just the north, but the entire city is dealing with. And then the next question is how do we pay for these things? In my opinion, we have to do, as a council, take the time and do a by-line budget review. I know it takes a lot of time, a lot of hours with those budgets, but we need to do it so we can figure out where we can get these monies and ensure that we have a safe community. And then overall, I believe once we do that, the businesses will really start to come in because they do look at crime. And then we can, I believe that will ensure that our neighborhoods grow stronger. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fisk?
I've always felt that economic development and public safety go hand in hand. So I want to continue what is happening with public safety. This is something that is embarrassing when someone says to me, I feel safer walking down the streets of New York City than I do Springfield. And that's very disappointing. So I really want to continue working with the data that we're getting from the police force, continuing to break that cycle. Also, the panhandlers are very embarrassing to me. When do you not go out and see a panhandler out on one of the streets? I saw one today out at Primrose and National, one of the busiest intersections, and there's a panhandler right in the very center. That is embarrassing to me, to all the people that are coming in to our medical community, and they see a panhandler there. So cleaning that up, continuing to work on that, and we're getting closer on that. I feel my expertise is economic development, social development, and cultural development of the city. And those are the areas that I want to continue work for. So when I leave in 4 years, then I'm leaving it to the next group to carry on the work that we started.
Thank you. And Ms. Fulnecky, you're next.
Yeah, thank you for having us. You know, I really feel that crime is the number one issue. And, you know, most importantly, I think also protecting our citizens, but the morale of law enforcement is very low in our city. Our city fights our police officers, collective bargaining, pay, now the pension's not funded. And so I think it's ridiculous that we fight our cops at every turn and they are in our neighborhoods protecting us and our children. And I think it's a travesty that's happened. And it's happened under this council's watch and all previous councils. And so there's a reason that we have a voting record. I mean, I mentioned that I was the only vote to keep the panhandling ordinance, that, you know, I didn't want the jail lawsuit. So when you're an incumbent, you have a voting record. And I feel strongly that it's time for change. We need fresh blood. We need people promoting minority-owned businesses, female-owned businesses. But most importantly, I think that we have to reduce crime. And our law enforcement community, they really deserve the respect of us as elected officials, because a lot of times the community supports the police, but not necessarily the people that are in public office. And I have been endorsed by the sheriff. I think I work very well with the county, and I think that reducing crime would directly affect the neighborhoods. And I think after that, then we work on economic development. But unless we do something about the crime, I don't think there's anything that we can do in terms of quality of life. So it's important to be prosperous, but most importantly, I think our job is to make Springfield safe. Thank you for having me here.
And Mr. McClure?
I too was born at Burge Hospital. I'm a product of Springfield. I was born and raised here. I went all through the public schools here, Roundtree, Jarrett, Parkview, bachelor's degree from what was then SMS. It's given me my values. My father owned a Maytag sales and service appliance company for 40 years at 305 East Walnut, which is now the home of the Vanderbilt Hotel. And I ate greasy cheeseburgers with him at Gailey Drugs long before it was cool to eat at Gailey Drugs. Worked on the delivery truck with him during my summers in high school and college. I know what it's like to run a small business. My mother taught school here at Parkview for 27 years, so I'm deeply indebted to the public schools here. How do we translate that into now our public service? I think it's time in my career that I want to give back. I've been able to do that 2 years on the council. Being able to be mayor would be just the ultimate experience for me. It's not a stepping stone. It's not something that I want to do to try to go on to do something else. My experience has brought me to this point in my career. I'm not afraid to tackle the tough issues. We've talked about a lot of them here. Panhandling, crime, poverty, all of those are going to have to be dealt with and addressed. And we're going to be able to do that, I think, with an effective council that treats each other civilly, that lays issues on the table, and we work together to try to find the best solution. One of the things I want to do is also, during my tenure as mayor, is recruit our successors. The short-term future is with folks like us. The long-term is with younger people and young professionals. We want to get them involved in boards and commissions, encourage them to run for office so that when it is time for us to step down and leave, we've got a good set of people ready to step up and serve our community.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that concludes this portion of our evening. We'll take about a 10 to 15-minute break before we move into our breakout sessions for zones. If you were here for Zone 1, you'll stay here in the ballroom. Zone 2 will be in the President's Dining Room, and Zone 4 will be in room 204. Hopefully there are people here to show you where those places are. Thank you.